young man and asked the question, Joey Lyons, who works as a nurse, I believe. And so he deals with a lot of people who have addictions and wanted to know if Beto O'Rourke is supportive of legalizing drugs. I not only liked his answer on that, but I especially liked that he mentioned the issue of private prisons in his answer. So let's take a look.
Let's end a war on drugs. It has become a war on people, a war on some people more than others. Yes, let's end the prohibition on marijuana and expunge the arrest records for everyone arrested for possession of a substance that is legal in most of this country. And then a few other quick steps. Let's end for-profit prisons in the United States of America. No one should get rich locking other people up. Let's end the cash bail system so that you are not too poor to be able to have your freedom in this country. And then lastly, let's make sure that we really look at the consequence of slavery and segregation and suppression and Jim Crow in this country that has produced a criminal justice system that has produced the results that we just described before. If we do that, we begin the process of repair.
So I think that was a strong answer, and I also think that was a smart answer, because what he did there was he attacked the crime bill, which Biden was behind, without attacking Biden.
Yeah.
And I think that that was tactful. I don't know if, look, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe that wasn't what he intended to do, but that's the way I read it. And I thought that it was a powerful way of going against something that Biden did without getting dirty.
Well, you got me to disagree with his answer a little bit, because otherwise I love the answer. It's a home run.
How do you disagree? How did I get you to disagree?
No, I'll tell you why. And we haven't even gotten to jailing the Purdue pharma guys, which is great as part of the same answer. So no, it's because that's what, like, Democrats are too subtle. Yeah, he's getting at Biden, but you picked it up because you're neck deep in this information and you noticed that subtle attack. No one at home understood it. So like, that's Trump's advantage. Like, while everybody's trying to nuance things in the Republican primary back in 2016, he's like, no, these guys all took money from me and did whatever I told them to do.
They're
corrupt, I'm gonna drain the swamp. There's no subtlety there. People are like, oh, I understand what he's saying.
No, look, I get that, and whoever the nominee ends up being, they need to fight the way, unfortunately, that Trump fights. But in the case of the Democratic primary, I would argue I don't want a repeat of 2016. And I want us to be a little cognizant of that as well as we move forward. I think that you can be tactful in how you go up against other Democrats without getting too aggressively dirty and angry and all of that.
And I think they're all playing that way. I mean, he was deliberately and explicitly asked about two 70-year-old frontrunners, alluding to Biden and Bernie, and he was like, I'm not in the business of coming down on my opponents. I will say with that answer, the strongest part about that to me was that you have a white candidate specifically naming slavery and Jim Crow and legacies of segregation. And we need to be naming those. We need to say that we're suffering still the fallout, of course we are, of that terrible legacy. And I think it's important for all white and non-white candidates to say that.
Matt, go ahead.
And specifically naming the current inequity in the way that the war on drugs is being prosecuted, which is important too. Yeah, I think it's possible that what you identified with him seeming to implicate Biden, and with the ways that this primary is going, Bernie too, because even though Bernie was incredibly specific about why he voted for but did not push or create the crime bill, so many people online are just like, oh, it's a wash. Oh, he voted for it. He was very specific about how it was for protecting women from violence, but he voted for it. So same thing as Biden, who literally was defending it last week.
There might be some dishonest actors online, whatever that means, that who push that narrative. But to be fair, I really don't see that narrative picking up steam in mainstream media, and the mainstream media loves to attack Bernie.
No, you guys are neck deep, man. Nobody watching that CNN town hall knows anything about the crime bill. They don't know what Biden did. They don't know what Bernie did. They have no idea. And so, I agree with Francesca on the mentioning slavery, civil rights, etc., and Jim Crow. In fact, I think what they've done now with the war on drugs is like reconstituted slavery. So I would go even further. But I don't agree with you guys on the let's be subtle and not attack other Democrats too much. No deal. Like no one has any idea how bad Biden was on that crime bill. He was terrible. He bragged about how he worked on the original crime bill in '91, which was called the Biden crime bill, with Strom Thurmond, who was a segregationist. He bragged about how people said that it was that you can get, it was a death penalty for everyone but jaywalkers. He bragged about that.
So you think it's beneficial to Beto to call that out, name him by name?
Any candidate, Beto, Bernie, it doesn't matter. Say, look, because the American people have no idea. If you asked 100 Americans, 99 of them have never heard of Joe Biden's stance on the crime bill, which was so horrific.
Okay, so look, this isn't a debate. We haven't started the debates yet. Okay, we still have a freaking lifetime until the election happens.
No, we don't. Time's running out.
Jake,
he's got a 20-point lead.
Jake, it's so early.
They have no idea. They have no idea.
They haven't had a debate yet. Let them have a debate.
I feel like it is late. The debates are still late. I agree with Cenk. I think we're already.
So you want to start with the dirty politics already?
Okay, but let's go back to the core of the answer because I feel bad because this was his best answer, and I don't want to devolve into a criticism of his style on this one. Is saying no for-profit prisons, wonderful. No cash bail, wonderful. Saying, hey, not only should we legalize marijuana, but we should expunge the records of the people who are unjustly criminalized, et cetera, and how much that affects the rest of their lives. John pointed out, hey, that's further than how most people talk about it, even the good guys in this case. So that's a home run answer. And let's get
super fast just for the record, because I think there might have been some miscommunication. I don't think any of us were saying anything akin to let's not criticize Democrats in the primary.
Yeah, I hear you, but
I sort of was. I a little bit was, and I think it's. I don't think we need unity between Democrats and Republicans, but I think people would do well. Any candidate would do well to refrain from criticizing other candidates without specifics. Like I think criticizing them on their age, especially now. I think debates, Anna, you're right that that's when you get specific on like, okay, all due respect, Mr. Biden, but your crime bill did X, Y, and Z.
Right, so look, the point that I'm just trying to make is it doesn't need to devolve into how ugly things got in the last election. And by the way, that goes for us. So like I want us to be specific, and I think we were specific, to be fair, about what we disagreed with when it came to Hillary Clinton. But we have to think ahead, and we have to think about, whoever the nominee ends up being. What if it's not our preferred nominee, which is possible?
No way. I don't regret one word I said during the 2016 primary. In fact, I wish I'd have said it louder so that we could have gotten Bernie Sanders, because he would have beat Donald Trump, and Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump. And so I'm not going to make that same mistake again. I want to be polite to Joe Biden, and then have him walk into a trap, have all of us walk into that same exact trap where he does the, status quo is wonderful, isn't it wonderful? Oh no, that's our only chance at losing to Donald Trump.
Cenk, I've done like 12 videos on how much I disagree with Biden, and I gave my examples for why I disagree with him. I'm not saying to not criticize them.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I think you're saying to be fair, but we are fair. Look at what we're saying. I don't agree with Beto overall, and I think a lot of his answers were crap, but he had a great answer on this question. We're super fair. If all his answers were great, we tell you they're all great, right? What do we care? He's not our uncle. Biden's not our uncle. Bernie Sanders is not our uncle. Or nor did they ever kick our dog. We're just telling you what their policies are. And I think we should all say them super loud and clear.
All right, so one of the other strong answers that Beto O'Rourke had during this town hall had to do with the pharmaceutical industry and whether or not there should be some consequences considering the opioid epidemic.
It is pretty clear that Purdue Pharma was marketing opioids to prescribers and to doctors as a miracle cure without side effects and playing down any consequences of addiction, though they knew something to the contrary. And you see the rates of addiction that you have across this country. If there is not justice served in this case, then it will continue to happen. So I back those attorneys general, and I think of Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, for example, but there are others across this country who are going to make sure that justice is served. It's the only way to ensure that going forward, you do not have that same problem marketed to future generations of Americans. So yes, there has to be legal consequences, including jail time if that's what the judge finds at the end of the day.
That's super strong.
Definitely.
There you go. Okay.
That was a good answer.
Yeah, look, so it gives you a sense he doesn't have to equivocate. So when he does, you should note it for the record. But for this, no equivocation. That's the strongest I've seen of any of the candidates. If he was like that on every answer, then he'd be my candidate.
Yeah, I thought that the position he ends up on was good. I think that the delivery could have been a little bit stronger. I sort of get why it wasn't. This is an area, anytime you talk about any sort of legal consequences for virtually anything that corporate America does, people get really nervous about it. But when it comes to big pharma and the fossil fuel companies, we're not just talking about a product that happened to kill lots of people. We're talking about a decades-long campaign to hide all of the evidence that they have known for a very long time that it was killing countless people. When you get to that point, what is the argument for not locking those people up when they are abetting countless, in effect, indirect murders every single year?
Yeah, no, it's not that brave of a stance to take. I think Beto doesn't stick his landings, and I think he's not ready yet. I don't think he says everything like he's a little bit of a wet cat, you know? It's like, well,
he does kind of look like a wet cat.
Like he's a little bit of a wet cat.
I like that.
Or a dog. He's definitely imitating that black lab that he always has next to him, like, don't run, you know?
It's so interesting how we saw so much of this slightly differently, right?
Yeah. It was a great answer. It was measured, but I don't think it was that brave of a stance. I also just think he doesn't make eye contact. He doesn't stick his landings, man. Like, you believe in something, then stand up for it.
You just said something that, like I felt internally, but I didn't know how to articulate it, and I feel the courage to do so now because you said it.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was a good answer, but I think it does go a little too far to say it's a strong answer. Because remember, I mean, you have red states right now. I believe Oklahoma sued Purdue Pharma, and you have conservatives who are going strong against these pharmaceutical companies. And so, yeah, it's not really that controversial to say that there should be some consequences. And his wording was very specific. And there should be jail time if a judge decides that there should be jail time, right?
So I mean comparatively strong in that very few politicians will specifically say that any CEO should ever end up in jail.
Totally agree.
And you can go for the companies, but generally, really strong action against these companies just means a slightly inflated fine.
In fact, I want to lay down a marker on that because that's the one answer where I thought, Now, viewers might like that, voters might like that, but no one on TV will like that because they all have huge drug company advertisers. They are friends with CEOs, et cetera. And I was like, ding, 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 ding. So he's gonna get the most amount of questions after the town hall about that answer, okay? And the marker I'm laying down now is if he walks it back at all, you should be totally and utterly done with him. Because that means he's never gonna accomplish anything. Like the minute he gets any pushback from corporations or the establishment, he will fold. But if he doesn't walk it back, then you should give him credit.
I mean, he doesn't even need to walk it back. It was like if the judge is determined. Well, that was always what was going to happen if the judge is determined.
Right, well, we're gonna
that doesn't involve the president.
No, and it's important context there. He said in his original answer that they should go to jail. Dana Bash then asked him a follow-up about that. That's where he got softer. That's where you guys noticed the wet cat, right? Situation, and that's where he even in stylistically kind of walked it back a little bit, and then verbally when he says if a judge decides, that's half a walk back. But he did come out originally in the first answers pretty strong, and he didn't back away when Dana Bash said, "Really, you're gonna jail executives?" And he was like,
but also let's just.
She was like an excited cat, you know.